Thank you very much indeed. Waiting here with Stixay from CLG after that victory over G2. First up, congratulations. You were the underdog going into this matchup, according to a lot of the analysts, but how did you guys step into that one?
Well, obviously, like, we're used to being in the underdog position, so it's nothing new to us. And I feel like it almost fuels us to even play better, so yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, you guys played amazingly. Very interesting pick and ban picking for that very aggressive lane. How did you want to contain that bottom lane specifically, and how did that fit into the rest of the game plan for this?
Well, we know that G2's main lane, they play off as bottom lane, so we decided to pick like a really strong bottom lane to contain that, and it worked out pretty well. This Worlds meta, I think, is pretty hard to figure out. I think a ton of teams have different priorities, so you'll see a ton of different drafts, so expect more weird picks.
Expect more weird picks. We love to hear that. Fantastic victory. How does it feel in general to bring home the first victory for an NA team here in NA?
It feels really good, especially since like so many people doubted us, and it's always fun to keep feeling the EU-NA rivalry. So.
Well, you definitely dealt the first blow in that fight. CLG upsetting G2 here, fantastic. Talk to me about how you guys as a team stand into this tournament before MSI coming out of NA as the first seed. Now it's a bit of a different story. MSI was a very breakout tournament for you personally, but it seems to be a different atmosphere, and a lot of the hype is going into TSM for this tournament. But how do you guys view it?
Well, in my personal opinion, I think that NA is actually a really strong region. Some people don't really think that, but in my opinion, they're probably like the second best region right now. So there's a ton of hype going to more so like the top NA teams like TSM and Cloud9. But even though we're like the other Worlds team from NA, we're still obviously really good. So yeah.
Obviously really good, that showed in this game. Finally, tell me how you think this group is going to go. A lot of people have said, well, Rock's clear #1, and then 2 is going to go between G2 and CLG. How did you see maybe your opinion on that changing now that you crushed G2?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think Rox is the clear #1, and then the battle is us versus G2. I still think it's going to be us versus G2. Just because we won a best of 1 doesn't mean we're better. So I think at the end of the group stage, it's still going to be us versus G2. So.
And is it going to be you in the end?
Maybe. Just kidding, of course.
Of course. Well, fantastic. Congratulations on your very first victory here at Worlds. Stixay, fantastic victory from CLG. And now we're going to kick it over to the guys at the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Shock. CLG victorious in Game 1 of the 2016 World Championships. But before we get into anything, gentlemen, I have to acknowledge the stellar 0% prediction rate that currently exists on this desk. And I'm sure the fans will be happy about that one.
I mean, if it mathematically 1,000 voices to 3 is a very unfair ratio.
CLG is like the Yugi, man. You can never count them out through their Millennium Puzzle. They show up every time it matters.
That is very right, and they showed up here. And before we dive into the gameplay itself, want to hit Champs like just briefly, as we saw the Aurelion Soul banned out, but that Caitlyn pick that had been brought out at MSI for Stixay, made popular there, doing work again here.
I mean, Caitlyn Nami's kind of a blocker lane to a lot of things. Nami's come into the meta because so strong against the melee supports. Caitlyn famous for her lane phase in general, so they went for the blocker picks. They played to it really well. But honestly, to me, this game was all about Darshan, and especially Xmithy or Smithy, depending on whether you want to confuse him with me. But regardless, great performance by them. And the Olaf pick we never see in Korea did work.
Well, yeah, you talk about that Olaf and Xmithy on it. Let's dive into our first replay brought to you by Acer here in the bot lane. Turret dive from CLG, gonna come out on top 2 for 1 in this trade.
And this is exactly what the Fisi was talking about. They know that there's a freeze going on, and they get to see Xmithy go for a ward clear in the top side. Immediately, Xmithy reacts, and they see Sven being a little bit greedy. The wave should not be here in this position, and they go for the dive right away. And from this point on, this is what's gonna snowball CLG's game.
A big kill picked up there. We'll see one more picked up here as Huhi comes into the bot lane.
Yeah, and Huhi right here, he realizes that the tides are turning in this fight. He actually flashed aggressively because he knows he has Nami follow-up. His team's already winning, and they'll aggressively chase into the jungle right there. But the good thing there is Syndra has role priority over Vladimir, because Huhi was so on his toes. He immediately followed. He knew that whatever CS he loses mid or position, it's more important to play as a team and roam down. And this is the second part of this replay right here. they just aggressively chase on Perks. What is Perks gonna do here? You know, flash 1, dodge 2, Darshan comes in swinging, and suddenly it all starts falling down for G2 Esports.
And what I really took away from this game, you know, both replays we're going to see, is just how fast on his feet, specifically Darshan, was on the Poppy. The laning phase against Jace is always going to be super punishing. We see it on the screen, but he was always first to leave his lane. Knew his role. He was happy to drop CS 20, 30, 40, 50 if he can make the plays around. If those plays go wrong, you just lose the game because you're entering lane 70 CS behind, but making the plays was what CLG needed.
And Crumbs, Darshan, this is the guy who was looked at with such a critical eye going into this international tournament. People saying he's the underperformer of CLG, but in this, as Papa Smithy mentioned, fulfilling that role, playing the role as he needed to against the likes of a Scary.
Well, they find him being very successful in the Poppy pick, one that's not expected to be such a high priority in the meta, but of course just brings so much utility, and particularly it's one of the best champions at actually punishing the bottom lane, and I think that's really what CLG's plan was from the very get-go. That's why you draft the Caitlyn Nami right from the start, make sure that you can kind of neutralize the big strength for G2, which is that dual lane, and they did so quite well.
Yeah, they just played around their strengths. Not only did they punish the bot lane, they also let the CLG macro shine, and that was incredibly apparent at the Baron bait here. So we're just going to take another look at how they set that up and just the importance of vision, pink wards, and just displaying just how easy it is to play against great teams if you have the right setup for the Baron. Hopefully, we can get that on the screen right now. We had a replay prepared.
Right, it was mentioned, though, that this team, right, kind of the contrast of the two teams, you've got individual talent. We're looking at tricks, you know, Trick to make plays around the map. But for CLG, it's the larger movements as a team. And we will see if we can get this replay up around the Baron, a great Baron dance from them, controlling the vision first, utilizing Darshan to kind of, you know, push people out of it. Here we see it on your screen now.
So they started knowing that they have vision control, because if we go to the vision toggle right now, we see 3 traps on the left side controlling that choke point. Then we have the zone control. They have 2 champions that are so fantastic at being a blocker. They have Poppy W, Poppy R, and in addition to that, they swept the pit. They have 2 pink wards. This is a magnificent setup from CLG, and major shots to my Weatherman Dash, who did the drawing on the screen here.
And the other big takeaway is that, of course, the top laner here, Expect doesn't have teleport, so they had that extra information. They set up really well, double ping, such clean stuff from CLG.
And you can't overlook the fact that they had wave control beforehand, so they push the waves immediately, they make G2 respond to the waves, and that's what you see them all funneling through that same place, because they have to come into the laning phase, and immediately Darshan does just such a wonderful job of zoning out Elise. You know it's the only factor that can steal it, and she can't get past without flash.
Yeah, we saw it right there. We had the Poppy R come out, everybody stepped back for a second. When they get closer, it's Aframu's turn. He throws out the tidal wave, and everybody on G2 is so apprehensive of entering that area. And if anybody came from the left side, they would have walked into those 3 traps.
And at the end of the day, Poppy can do 2 roles. Initiation, we saw that, but goalkeeping, that's what it feels like. Just powering up that hammer, there for disengage, and got them the Baron, which really cemented this game for CLG.
Well, this is going to bring us to our player of the game, though, and that's going to the Olaf play in the jungle. Smithy 6-0-5 on that Olaf, making his presence known.
And the cool thing about this game, how it's